Guys, Paul here. Welcome back to the Anfield View. Hope you're all keeping well. Another video. Time to really get straight into it, guys. Let's talk all things Liverpool. Let's talk all things the transfer window. Let's talk all things. It's got a little bit quiet, hasn't it, for us at the moment? It's a strange situation because there'll be some that says the World Cup's ongoing. That must mean that nothing's really happening. Well, you maybe, but it seems there's a lot of sort of taxis leaving the rank, isn't there, at the moment? And we've obviously seen Spurs doing bits and quite large bits. In fairness to them, if you're a Spurs fan, you got to be excited with obviously Tonali and Fernandez being purchased this week. You've seen Manchester City obviously bring Elliot Anderson in. My general thoughts on those transfers are is the two things can be true at the same time. One, they're strengthening the opposition, which is obviously, I don't necessarily class Spurs at this point because obviously where they've been the last few years. But in general, it's obviously it can only put them in a better position. But equally, that's three midfielders that we can't get. And I've been at pains. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, does it, to really understand Liverpool's problems? Wingers, you know, to reiterate the thing one last time, wingers, defensive midfielder, maybe a bit of cover up for up top while we're waiting to bridge the gap with it, Ekateke, and somebody, an extra defender would be wonderful. That could basically be centre back and right back, just as a bit of a cover, frankly, because we've got injury-prone right backs to the moon. Not, we all know Bradley's really meant to be the long-term solution, but equally we have no idea whether he can really stay fit for a season. And equally, we really do need another centre back. And so, am I concerned? Look, I never would have liked Liverpool to get Elliot Anderson. Yes, did I ever think we were going to get him? No, he's pretty much nailed on to be at City from about 6 months ago. Did I think? What did I think about Tonali and Fernandez? I like them as players. I'm not necessarily like distraught that Liverpool haven't gone in for them. Or I'm not necessarily asking Liverpool to find the next Mascherano or the next Fabinho, but if you'd like to find them, that would be wonderful if that's okay. If you can unearth the next Mascherano or Fabinho, that really would probably help my hair grow back, I think, to some extent, mainly because our midfield, I don't care what anyone says. Gravenberch is not even remotely close to a defensive midfielder. It's not Szoboszlai. We obviously know it's not McAllister. Whether McAllister stays or goes, that doesn't change that dynamic. If anything, the way we're going to play next year is even more aggressive. Sure, we're going to be maybe defending more from the front, but when we did that in the past, we had three people in midfield that they had their DNA. Ronaldo to a lesser extent, but Henderson, Milner, and Fabinho had massive defensive qualities to them. Obviously, Milner and Fabinho especially. And so, am I concerned? It's Liverpool do things in their own way. Trying to read the room when it comes to Liverpool's transfer activity and urgency is a bizarre one. Do we need to do phenomenal amounts this year? No. Does it mean we can afford to let weeks on end just drift by? Not really. Mainly for the fact that if we're not doing something, the opposition are doing something, and other clubs are buying people, which means every week we don't buy that defensive midfielder. There's another option sort of disappearing off the marketplace. I don't think there's a huge amount of depth for quality defensive midfielders. We can all see there isn't a huge depth to quality wingers. And the problem is Liverpool want Diomande, great, but we're not going to get him because he's chose PSG. I've already said that in previous videos. It wasn't rocket science. He made his feelings clear a long time ago on that one. They obviously got a heads up that there may be an opportunity. It hasn't panned out. We move forward. The logical next step is Bradley Barcola, but then again, they don't need to sell him. There's no any indicator he even wants to come to us, and that fee's going to be 130 odd million. So I doubt that one's looking like it's going to happen either. And so you take those two out of the equation, which one already has, the other one's probably looking like it's not going to happen either. And you suddenly start, sort of scraping around, and it's just like, well, Ray and Bournemouth looks more and more appealing by the second. But if he suddenly disappeared off the taxi ranks, you're really scrambling around for um not unproven would be the wrong word, but not proven enough potential. So we're starting to look at wingers at 18, 19, 20, which is basically where Rio essentially is, give or take, in leagues that aren't necessarily that strong. And that's not to say they're not going to be the next superstar talent. It's just to say that it's all well and good. We're going to be stuck in a world where if we do buy a talent that's 18 or 19 for 50 odd million, then frankly, we're going to need maybe a Jared Bowen to go alongside that just to give us some sort of backup with experience and proven quality. Otherwise, Liverpool could really be cut short next year on the wings. So, is there an urgency to what we need to do? Not when you put it in the context of having 2 months to do it, but when you put it in the context of the fact that there isn't a massive supply line of great wingers. There isn't a massive supply of great defensive midfielders. And so ultimately, if we sit on our hands for the next month and basically focus on sales, let's just say we do, not inconceivable, we spend the next 3 weeks basically working out what we're doing with existing contracts and sales, and maybe get one signing over the line, maybe. It's like, well, that's all fine and dandy, but by the time we get our head back up to look at purchases, all the options have gone. And so I don't think we need to do insane 120 million transfer fees. I don't know what the solutions are in terms of the defensive midfielder. That's glaringly, you got, obviously Alex Scott. There's not. There's rumours that Ariola's looking for somebody at 45 million in Germany for the midfield. You would think it wouldn't be that hard to find a top draw defensive midfielder, but given the fact that most teams don't have that greater defensive midfielder, and not everybody's trying to play silky football and transitional football, and I think those days of yeah, the sort of crazy influence of Pep Guardiola in terms of everybody must play a certain way. I think that those days have started to come to an end, and we're going back to more physical midfielders. And look, Gerrard was a crazy physical midfielder, but equally he had ridiculous talent and skills that went with that. He could pass like Alonso, he could tackle like a Mascherano, and he could score like some of Liverpool's best from the midfield, and that's what made him world class because he could do all of it. And look, he's probably, this market, it'd be worth about 500 million. He's like, there isn't anybody that can do that. I mean, Elliot Anderson's gone for 120 plus million. He's hardly free scoring on the scoring front. I wouldn't say he's a silky passer either. And so yeah, it'd be great to hear your thoughts, guys. First of all, many thanks for the fantastic comments this week on obviously the last video that went up, and obviously just opinions on the wingers and the midfielders. That's really, it's great to hear, guys. Really trying to build a community, for us to really sort of ping off each other. It'd be great to hear your thoughts on, are you sort of relatively sort of chilled out when it comes to this situation? Are you just sort of, wow, we've got 2 months, we'll get it done? I was sort of sometimes when I always maybe it's a bit of sort of PTSD or nervousness of windows that haven't gone necessarily right. Because we all assumed Mark Gay was going to happen last year, and then it drifted and drifted and drifted, and aimlessly drifted and drifted and drifted. And before we know it, on the last day of the season, it's like, sure, we agreed it, and the egg got pulled. And I understand that it's not the club's fault that they couldn't find a replacement. But equally, if we'd have bid for Gay at the start of August, and there was more margin for them to actually find a replacement for that month. I don't think bidding somebody on the last day is frankly that great a business, is it? Let's be honest. You're giving the selling club one day to try and find that replacement. So yeah, I mean, we all know that was a poor it was just a poor manoeuvre from us from a transfer perspective. It doesn't take rocket science for anybody to say that. My sometimes my worry with us is that I mean this in the most respectful way possible. You have 2.5 months to do transfer business. In that 2.5 months, there's only three things you've got to work on: existing contracts for senior players and youth players, and new contracts for new signings, and and of course, incomings and outgoings. It's like get it, but there's only a certain amount of outgoings Liverpool are going to have. I mean, in terms of the senior squad, you've really only got Gakpo, McAllister, maybe Gomez, maybe Elliot, and that's sort of it. Everyone else is either in that sort of stage where they've only just joined or on long-term contracts. There isn't that many senior players that one people even want, and two that are in a position where they're likely to go based on when they just joined the club. So there's not that many people that could go. It looks like Alisson's staying for another season. All right, Virgil may or may not. I don't see Virgil going. That would be insanity to let him go at this current point in time. And so you look at it and you think, well, there's not much that can really happen, really, on the out. That takes up vast amounts of your time on the outgoings. Then you look at like, okay, you got to work on the outgoings for the youth players. It's like, in all due respect, it's like, yeah, I get it, but if you're spending 5 hours a day working on an outgoing for a youth, you know, player, then you should be spending that 5 hours a day to solve the bigger problem, which is getting the major deals for the first. The first team takes priority first. That's just obvious. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm not privy to behind the scenes in terms of how they manage the time to get these things done. But you've got what 10 hours a day, and then that's not exactly asking them to go overboard. 10 hours a day for at least 5 days a week. You've got 50 hours. You're 50 hours in a week. What do we get done in those 50 hours? I mean, it's like, yeah, right. It's like you've contracts. That doesn't take that long. I know you got to make. I'm not saying transfer deals are easy. I'm generally not saying transfer deals are easy, and we're not privy to the bids that go in that get knocked back. We're not privy to the ongoing conversations for things that may happen a month down the line. None of us saw minutes coming in. So like, I could be complete. We could be sitting here in 2 weeks' time. We have a defensive midfielder. We have a defensive midfielder. We're sitting here with another winger, and we go, only really one more player to go. Then, if possible, that'd be great. And so, I'm not ruling off the cards that we aren't doing this stuff that we just don't know, because you would assume they would be, otherwise they wouldn't be doing their job. But sometimes weeks do drift on with Liverpool. I've noticed in transfer windows, one week goes into the next, and another one goes into the next, and suddenly sat there and you've gone 3 weeks of the transfer window, and the only thing that's happened is a couple of sales, which I understand. Is obviously the model in and out. You got to bring the money in. I 100% get that, but equally, when only we don't have that many outgoings to really be working on this year, and so is this impasse at the moment because we want to get some more players out the door to understand what budget we have for the next manoeuvres? Maybe. I think that in this transfer window, bearing in mind where we were last year, I don't think we can be in that position where we're waiting around to get sales in before we do the buys, purely for the fact that we just have to, in a market where there's a huge demand and there's a massive supply shortage there's a massive supply shortage in strikers, decent wingers, defensive midfielders. You could even argue decent centre backs as well. But there just is. Don't ask me why. If I had an answer, I would tell you I really don't know what's happened to the whole supply chain, of football. But then you only have to look at national teams. Is this the world's greatest Brazil team? No, not even remotely close. Is it the world's greatest Germany team? No, disaster, gone out. Is it the world's greatest Dutch team? They're okay, nothing fantastic. They're okay, they're out. You look at it and you go, Argentina, like, yeah, they're strong. but obviously you've got Messi, and you obviously got the players at the wingers at Man City that's at Atletico now, playing well, and they've obviously got McAllister and Fernandez in midfield. So yeah, Argentina are in a strong position, and France are in. France seem to be the only country that has an insane amount of depth. In fact, they seem to have the entire monopoly of world-class wingers at the moment. But then onto a rumor at the moment. There's some crazy rumor on the internet, and it is only a rumor, so hopefully this has no sort of validity to it whatsoever, but it's worth bringing to you guys. Some rumour that there may be a small, slim interest in Silvino from Man City. Please, dear love of God, no. I'd rather take Jared Bowen over Silvino. It would probably cost us about 80 million because everybody City sells comes with a premium, and it's not worth it. So I'm going to sneeze. Apologies there, guys. I was trying to suppress it then. I think, what's left of my hair just come off my head then. Yeah, Savino's not the solution for us. He's just not done enough for City, and if he hasn't done enough for City, I don't see why he would be good enough for us. I just don't. When City get rid of players, how many of them really outside of things like Cole Palmer who left because he wanted first team football, and so that he's a different kettle of fish. But how many of them have really gone on to do anything afterwards? Not many. The couple, the odd one that's come and gone that have done well, but Jesus, not really at Arsenal. Leroy Sané, not really. Man City tend to be very good at getting rid of players, and occasionally one or two here and there that have left that have joined and then left very quickly because they just wanted guaranteed football. But the vast majority don't do better after they leave City, and I'm just not convinced that Savino would be a really desperate buy for me. It wouldn't be a sign of, oh great, we've got no, not at all. Really wouldn't be. I'd rather take sixth choice winger at PSG than actually take Savino. So my thoughts moving forward, guys. It feels like we're going into about the fifth barrel when it comes to the wingers. There is I've been very straightforward. It always was Barcola 1, Diamande 2, Graham 3. Okay, number two's off the table. Number one looks like the direction of travel isn't looking great. So I'm down to about 15% confidence Barkler has any chance of even remotely coming in. I would pull the trigger on Ryan now. For me, I don't see any value in hanging around. Ultimately, his value is only going to go up as the market gets as the supply shortens more and more and more and more and more, and the options when it comes to buying creative wingers diminishes. His value is just going to go up and up and up and up and up, and ultimately Bournemouth know that. It's the reality, isn't it? They know that. Everybody knows we want a winger, and that's the problem. Is we're just not in a strong position. You can only negotiate from a position of strength when you're in a position of strength, and Liverpool aren't. Everybody knows what we need. We need a defensive midfielder badly. The world knows it. There isn't that many of them around. Everybody knows we badly need wingers. The world knows it, and there's not that many of them. Half of them are at Bayern Munich. We decided in our infinite wisdom to hand them another one in Diaz, and we shouldn't have been in this position. That's the problem, isn't it? We sold Diaz last summer. I don't regret the buys that we bought, but I do regret that we never replaced Diaz. And I get the fact that the model was essentially shifting away from the emphasis of goal scoring wingers and moving more towards Verts supplying, through balls down the middle to Isak. And maybe the plan was Ekiteke to come off the left, and maybe they do view Ekiteke as a hybrid version. But Ekiteke's not really a winger. He's not a winger. He's just not even remotely close to a winger. And so Liverpool still do need wingers. And I know we've just got one in, we badly need another one, just so we'd have two new wingers plus Rio, which is three, which would be three proper wingers, as I would call them. Gakpo's not a winger, but Gakpo as a fourth option is fine. Or in rotation is fine if it has to be that way because we just can't find a solution. But don't spend the entire summer trying to chase down this miracle next winger and then forget that a defensive midfielder is vastly equally important because that our midfield is wildly not athletic. It's exposed and it's exposing an old defence when Virgil's playing is going to have an inexperienced young defenders playing as well. And so, boy, if we ever needed a well-being defensive midfielder, it's right now. We're going to have Kirkes, a young defender, Virgil, who's old, who knows at right back, and Allison, who's obviously having, has his issues with his injuries. And so it's hardly the most convincing of back lines to have confidence in going forward for the year. As I say, look, things may all well be rosy in 2 weeks' time, but am I a little bit twitchy? Tiny bit. Uh, Tiny bit because I don't want to be sitting here in 3 weeks' time really putting a video up for you. Got not obviously put one up before then, don't worry, guys. But I don't want to be sitting here in 3 weeks' time putting up a video saying, time to worry now, isn't it? Because we all know we can't do free transfers in the final weeks. If for no other reason, it'll be because the quality of player has disappeared. And I'm all for finding a Genie Wijnaldum, Fabinho, and Andy Robertson. You know, I'm all in. I'm with you. If it was as simple as that, but if it's as simple as that, we'd have already done it. Since that sort of era of magical sort of stardust that we did with our analytics and data, how many have we really pulled off since then? Really? I mean, Mane was obvious. If you actually watched any Premier League activity, Mane was pretty damn obvious. But for starters, he ripped us apart at Spurs, not at Spurs, at Southampton numerous times when we played him. So for another reason, it was rammed right down our throats just how good Mane really was. And so that was an obvious one. Virgil was an obvious one. Alisson was an obvious one. And so, I'm not taking credit away from people, but they weren't rocket science. Those signings, everybody knew them, on that front. It was just a question, obviously, in Alisson and Virgil's case, we needed Fabinho's money to even be able to afford it. Now, the question for us is, can we find some gems out there? Do we still have that analytical gold dust that we used to have? It's been a long time. I mean, all of our activity, we've dined out on the last 10 years of the same squad, pretty much. We drip fed a Thiago in for a bit of extra creativity, but obviously on hefty wages. We've drip fed. We were able to bring Jota, God rest his soul, into a situation when we didn't really need him that much because we had a crazy amount of depth and it was absolutely amazing to have him. We were bringing Konate in from a position when we already had Matip and Van Dijk and great right back, great left back, and Konate was superb in his peak and not obviously great when he wasn't. But equally, Liverpool just aren't in that period now. We're just not in that period where there's the key people that we have in the team really out. There's question marks. There's more question marks on everybody. You look at you for 1 to 11. Even Alisson has questions because of injuries. We don't know who right back is. The new centre back is going to be a young centre back, regardless, even if it costs 60 million on that front. The reason I haven't put a celebratory we've signed somebody is basically we signed him in January. I'm not in this business of, of course I want the player to be amazing. Absolutely, I want the player to be amazing, and absolutely he deserves his welcome to Liverpool. Of course he does. But equally, I'm not going to celebrate a January signing that was made in January, which for me is classed as a January purchase, even though it gets confirmed in the summer. And then you celebrate it. So you celebrate in January, great, we got the signing. Then you celebrate it in the summer, great, you got the signing. It's like, no, that to me just seems like you're trying to sort of say that, count that half of that transfer as we did some business in January, count half of it as we did business in the summer, or count it in both windows. So you can't count it in both windows. You have to accept the fact we didn't do anything in January. You can't just say, well, we did do it in January, and then say, oh, yeah, but we also did it in the summer. I was like, no, that's just a way of just not spending the money that's required. For me, I don't really wash with that. And so, really happy about Jack A. I was very pleased in January, but that's where I celebrated him signing for us. So welcome to Liverpool. Absolutely. Hope you do phenomenal without a doubt. Boy, do we need you too. And so, but I'm not going to put a video up just saying brand new signing. It's not a brand new signing. It's confirmation of a signing we already had in the bag from January, isn't it? So it just makes no sense to just go down that rabbit hole, but equally deserves his welcome 100%, on that front. So, guys, yeah, it'd be great to hear your thoughts with, what do you think with respect to so many players sort of already, we've seen three midfielders already gone, plenty of wingers, whether Diamandi goes to PSG now or the following summer, it looks like he's either going to go there now or he's going to be maybe purchased and loaned back to Leipzig on a cheaper deal. And maybe Barkley leaves the following summer. Maybe Barkley never leaves. He's having that great a World Cup. Maybe he doesn't. Somebody in the comments, many thanks for the comments this week. Mentioned Kvaratskhelia at PSG. Hey, if I thought we had a remote chance of even getting close to getting Kvaratskhelia, I would go for him, but we have got no chance. He's one of their best players. He's crucial to them. I thought, and it's not playing Monday morning quarterback, I thought we slept on that when he was at Napoli. Completely slept at the wheel when that happened. We could have gone after him. We didn't go after him. Sometimes I give Liverpool a mass amount of credit on so many things, but future proofing is not something we're great at, or we even try to do sometimes. And I don't know whether it's purely a financial thing or we just don't want to stop. The problem is the narrative is we don't want to sort of block the pathway as if there's a massive stampede of youth quality product coming through. Once every 3 or 4 years, we bring through a Trent or a Gerrard. Like, yeah, that's wonderful, but we also have players getting older while we're waiting for them to come through, and players leaving while they're waiting for that to happen. And so we must have a pathway. I tell you what, just get the first team sorted, and get the squad sorted. From my general standpoint, is that I have yet to see any top team, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool in their pomp, Man United, Chelsea, Man City, whoever it is, I've yet to see any top team have a problem bringing through a world-class youth player. If they're good enough, they'll make their way into the team. If they're not good enough, then they won't. Sure, there's situations where you've seen a Kevin De Bruyne leave Chelsea, Mo Salah leave Chelsea. You've seen Cole Palmer go from City to Chelsea. It's like, yeah, I get it. We got Rio off Chelsea. We got Raheem Sterling off QPR for £1 million when he was young. We bought Jordan Ibe for £1 million from Wickham. We didn't unearth these gems. We purchased them at like 16. When most of their talent we'd already. I know we had to harness it, but the raw massive amount of talents that they had, we purchased. And at that time, 1 million for a youth product was a lot of money, and it still really is. And so where we're at now, I generally think that it's game face. It's game time now. I know the World Cup's ongoing. Look, Germany are out. If we were looking to buy anyone from that team, Holland are out. If we were looking to buy anyone from that team, not that I really necessarily would be, but I'm just saying that. Yeah, sure, Morocco is still in. It's like, yeah, but listen, there's plenty. One, we've got a homegrown quota. We've got a somehow fill. So we could be doing business with half of the Premier League, with half of other divisions in Europe. There's loads of teams in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, etc. that haven't got players in the World Cup. The whole transfer window still carries on going. Ramos is leaving from PSG to go to AC Milan. It's like, look, people are doing things. We did, I get the fact that we've signed one player, Man United have signed one player, City have signed one player, Spurs have signed a couple of players. I get the fact we're not sitting here when we've got one and they've got seven. And it's not, it's like we don't even need seven. We need 4, 5. But all I'm saying is that because our season was so bad, and I think some people will say, it was just a bit of a bad season. No, it was downright horrendous. Don't be fooled by getting in the Champions League by default. Sure, there may be an element of players taking the foot off the gas with the World Cup. I don't believe they took it off to that extent. Um, and we as much as I want Irioli to be phenomenal, for him to have half a chance for him to do the job that we want him to do, we have to give him the tools to do it. If we don't give him the tools to do it, if he's stuck with the vast majority of last season's squad and we haven't repaired the midfield with that midfielder with the wingers that we don't have, maybe some cover for defence, then you're asking him to turn, to turn water into wine but with no grapes, or forget the grapes with no water, but just give me a glass of wine. I've got no grapes. I've got no ingredients to actually do this. And so, give Irioli at least some chance to actually. I'm not expecting a title push by any shape or form. Not remotely 1% of me is expecting, or even I hope for miracles all the time. But do I expect a title push? Not in your Nelly. No, we're 2 years away at best from that. All I hope is that we're playing much better. We're not as boring and passive and not lazy would be the wrong word. Unfit would be the wrong would be the right word. Uncompetitive. I just if all we do next year is make it harder for teams to play against, we're a lot fitter, a lot more aggressive, a lot stronger. We're a lot more entertaining. And if we finish third or fourth on 65 points and we've improved those areas and I could see the direction of travel improving, then that's a good first season. And if we get a trophy on top of that, it's a bonus. I know all things aren't going to get solved this summer because we probably aren't going to spend all the money, and I'm not even sure the players that can give you that immediate solutions are all there. And I'll be very honest on that, So this is where we're putting a huge stock on. Yeah, we need the manager to improve the fitness, the mindset, the training, the philosophy, the approach. Get it, all of that. But even Jurgen Klopp, who got the fitness, the mindset, the philosophy, the approach right, still needed to have the right players. Fact, he still the spine was Alisson, world class keeper, Virgil, world class defender, midfielder, Fabinho, world class defensive midfielder, attack, Marley and Salah, world class wingers. That is the spine of what achieved everything for Liverpool. And you put on top of that one of the world's greatest left backs for 4 or 5 years, a world class creator in Trent, even if you don't value him as a right back in terms of creativity, he's one of the world's best. And so you then sprinkle that with a bit of magic dust with players like Wijnaldum that could do a bit of everything. And then players like Firmino he's not the greatest in terms of goal scoring, but he really wasn't there to be that. He was there to really create sort of almost the synergy of the holy triangle between those three up the top, between him, Mane and Mo. He was the one that really sort of knitted it nicely together. And so where we're at now, we haven't got anything knitted together up top. I know because we've got new players. The midfield looks dysfunctional because we've just got weird types of players. We've not brought a defensive player. We've got a sort of a hybrid. I don't even know what Gravenberch is meant to be. A transitional type of pipe. He can sort of break things up well, he doesn't sort of really do it that well. Well, I know people go, oh, yeah, but in the title winning season he did. Yeah, I get the fact he played a lot deeper, which maybe make he played a bit better. I was like, yeah, I can see that. And I know he played more advanced last year, but you can't be telling me he wasn't asked to drop deep in the middle of a crisis from sort of November to the end of the season, and he didn't really do much then. And he doesn't even want to play that position. McAllister can't play the position because he doesn't have the legs, the physicality, and he's not even what he is. He's an attacking midfielder, really, McAllister. He's not really a passer of a ball. And you've then got Szoboszlai who's more of a ball carrier and one who wants to create and shoot. And so we don't have the right characteristics. We managed to pull off a title win. I still sort of don't really know how, but we did. We had a phenomenal season from Mo, the best season of Canate's career, for example. And Diaz was phenomenal. Gakpo in rotation did his best. And Jota was superb. And there's lots of different reasons why we were very good. And I'm not taking credit away from Gravenberch. I'm just saying that when we're asking him to be the defensive midfielder that we badly need right now to help out the defence, and that defence badly needs the midfield to help them this season. And if our midfield is AWOL, you could have Franco Baresi, you could have Virgil van Dijk at his peak, you could have Yap Stam, you could have whoever you like. They're going to need miracles if the midfield isn't going to help them. It's just as simple as that, isn't it? Even players like Kirkus need help from the winger that's in front of him, to at least help him at some point. On the right side, whoever's going to be right backs needs the midfield to help them. And when they come through the middle of the pitch, if the three in midfield aren't going to be any help when it comes to the defensive side, then the new centre back Kinshaka is going to be completely exposed early doors. Virgil's getting old. It's not negative. It's just observational and just a reality check as to where we're at and the importance of getting these players. It's not quantity in terms of spending 50 million on every player this summer. Get the free player. We got Muniz. Get one more winger. Get the defensive midfielder. If you can get the defensive midfielder and wingers sorted in the next 2 or 3 weeks or before August, we've then got the whole of August to get a bit of depth and cover for up top and for the centre back, right back position. That's all we've got to do for August. Nothing crazy. Get the 3 main ones in, get a little bit of cover in, and hopefully don't sell the house. Like we did last summer, which is basically when we sold in half the squad to actually fund the sales. Because what's the point? What's the point of spending 460 million if you're going to have to go and sell 200 of it, and it takes so much depth out of the team that you've just hamstrung yourself from the minute one. And we have to have learned that lesson. None of us regret getting Verts or Isak. You can't. But equally, would we have chosen to get Isak, Ekateke? And I don't think any of us really signed up for. I tell you what, let's buy Ekateke but sell Diaz. Would you wanted to sell Diaz to Ekateke? I wouldn't have. I love Ekateke, but I still wouldn't have. I still wouldn't now take him over Diaz. I'm not saying in the future he may not be phenomenal. I'm just saying right now, maybe you'd be crazy to say that. And so that's sort of what happened to us last summer, isn't it? We got rid of Kwanzaa and we got Leone. Okay, cool. I mean and we were unfortunate with Leone's injury, but it was sort of one for one. But we took a lot of players out of the squad, like a Tyler Morton and Harvey Elliott, and other players within the squad that just, and too many seasons where we didn't buy players and leaving on free transfers left, right, and centre. You sit there and you think, Jesus, not another one leaving on a free transfer. Yeah, it is what it is, guys. It'd be great to hear your thoughts. It's really only more of an update video, for you, just sort of where we're at now. Are you a little bit nervous? I know we've got 2 months. It sounds utterly mad for me to be sitting there thinking, I am a little bit nervous. maybe it's because I've been absolutely destroyed confidence-wise on last year, and it feels like we were overconfident because we won the title and we got all these flash signings, and it went completely. You couldn't go any further wrong if you tried. And now we're sort of stuck here, being almost scarred by such a horrendous season. For me, I don't care what anyone says, the worst season I've ever witnessed for Liverpool, bar nothing. And there is a lot to do. There is a lot to do. And this the worrying factor is, whilst we are worried about the players coming in because we don't get them, we're not going to be any further. We will be better for what our Iriota will do with the training and the tactics, but he needs to make any real massive pushes. He needs his players, and I look at it now and say we've still got the concerns over players leaving. It's like, Jesus, could you imagine if players like Gomez or Jones suddenly left tomorrow? And we're like, oh, are you having a laugh? We've still got to get the other three players that have got to come in. We've then got to get another two players to replace them. That means we've got to get five players. And that's where my anxiety, as it were, on in this situation really comes through. It's more born out of, if nothing happened between now in the next 2 months, and it was guaranteed that nobody was leaving, and it was and I was and there was a massive supply of wingers and defensive midfielders, I'd be pretty okay. But the very fact is, we need three at the moment, two 100% really free players coming in with nobody being sold. If Gomez, Robertson, Chiesa all leave, we could be sitting here right now when we need two, need him five, suddenly need him five players in what could be at that time a month and a half to do it. You then time goes like that in a heartbeat. It's not easy to bring five players in of any real quality that really make a difference. If it was that easy, we'd have already got the other two signings in by now. And especially when you get drawn into long negotiations, we spent 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks on Jan Diomande. Didn't work. Okay, cool. But if you do that two more times in the transfer window and they don't come off, you've only got like 1 month of the transfer window to potentially, it could be, there's a realistic world where some of these players do leave, where we could need four, five signings in 1 month. And I know, like, if my auntie was my uncle and shoulda, coulda, woulda, in these situations, and we could be sitting here next week and go, Paul, oh, you're crazy. Have more confidence. I was like, yeah, I wish I could. Because I feel that whilst we were amazing last summer in terms of getting Isak, in terms of getting Verts, we also messed up Gahey, we've messed up Semenya, we've watched other wingers go. We've watched a couple of midfielders already go to other clubs this summer. I'm happy we've got Munez in for the door. I like Iriola, but equally, it's one of those, for as much as we do great things, we also let Diaz go. I wasn't a fan of that. Some people were. Some people are great value. Well, it doesn't look great value now because we haven't got a winger outside. Is it great value now? No. Oh, yeah, but that's easy to say now. It's like, I get the fact that nobody envisaged Mo coming to a halt, but equally, he was no sprint. It wasn't Mo at 21. He was coming toward the end of his career. And we're at this point, you can't assume that Mo's going to carry on at the same level as what Messi and Ronaldo did. They're freaks of nature. And Ronaldo adjusted his game for the last sort of 7 years to basically just being a striker. The days of Ronaldo being a winger were gone years ago. And Salah, whilst he did adjust his game to more creativity and less, apart from the freak season of the output of the title winning season, maybe there was a world we could have got more out of Salah and pushed him through the middle, but that's not really where he wanted to play. Fundamentally, guys. So, yeah, it'd be great to hear your thoughts. Really, really, really appreciate all the comments. Yeah, the new subscribers this week. Thanks so much, guys. We are building a community. It works with me and you. Hit the bell, make the comments, do the subscriptions. All helps the channel. All helps build the community. We are unfiltered. This is just our views. We don't represent the club, but it's our general, honest views on how we feel the business could be done, should be done, is being done. The direction of travel, our thoughts. Are we happy with where it's going? Believe me, I don't think there's a Liverpool fan or even a football fan alive that doesn't want to have the party poppers and start singing. When it comes to transfers and trophy wins, we all want that. Yeah, we'd all rather just not ever put a video up ever talking about anything that's negative. Nobody wants to. The realities are, unless you've just won the title, and even then, not everything's perfect. But the reality is Liverpool did have a disastrous season, and because of that, we're all stuck in this, sort of blender, as it were, trying to really get out of the blender. God, I sound like I'm quoting the internship film, doesn't it now? But it's one of those where we are stuck in this blender and it's going around and we're trying to get out the blender. And there's a lot of work to do, isn't there? So yeah, great to hear your thoughts, guys. You enjoy the rest of your week. Speak to you more soon. You take care.